Mic check, mic check. Mic. Check 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Check 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Check.
It's small, but it'll work. It's better. You don't want them to look at it. Good. Okay. It's too small.
You can use the back of this.
Can I?
Yep.
Rip it off?
Yeah.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. A B C D E F G. Testing testing testing. Testing 1 2 3. Okay. Good. Testing 1 2 3 4. A B C D E F G. Testing testing. They're on their way, guys. Testing testing testing. He's taller than me by a lot.
Morning, everyone. Just another slow week in Washington, D.C. We had a very productive meeting today, focused on the business of the week, focused on the values that we as Democrats hold dear, and focused on our commitment to the highest ideals of the United States of America. One thing has been clear during the 2.5 years of Donald Trump's presidency. There are very sharp differences between what we as House Democrats and the Democratic Party is about and what Donald Trump and Trumpism is about. Democrats want to move the country forward. Donald Trump wants to turn back the clock. Democrats want to bring America together. Donald Trump is tearing us apart. Democrats are fighting for the people. Donald Trump is fighting for the privileged few. At our best, House Democrats wake up each and every day and fight for working families, middle-class folks, senior citizens. We fight for the poor, the sick, the afflicted, and the disenfranchised. We fight for the least, the lost, and the left behind. We fight for everyday Americans, and that's exactly what we're going to do this week, leading with our legislation to give America a raise. When we had a conversation with the American people over the last year or so leading up to November of 2018, we made clear that we would fight to increase pay for everyday Americans. That is exactly what we are going to do this week. Because we believe that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, no American should be left behind. We need to lift everyone up, not simply the privileged few, those who benefited from the GOP tax scam, where 83% of the benefits went to the wealthiest 1% in America. That was a moral outrage. And this week we continue on a course correction. And we look forward to a strong and a robust vote on our minimum wage, our living wage legislation. And with that, let me yield to my good friend, our distinguished Vice Chair, Catherine Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to underscore this week the importance of this vote on raising the minimum wage. This is really at the core of our For the People agenda, creating jobs and increasing wages. And we are going to be able to hear this morning from two of our outstanding new members of Congress, Congresswoman Katie Hill and Congressman David Trone. But I would like to just highlight the fact that for working women in this country, this is a particularly important vote and increase. It is going to give an estimated 23 million working women a raise. This is going to help narrow the wage gap that disproportionately affects women of color. And we are thrilled to be able to vote on this today and make sure that everyone who is working is able to support their families. And what we found in this economy is that working hard is not enough. And this is really going to go a long way to make sure that every American has a fair shot at success. We are also taking votes this week on holding Attorney General William Barr and Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross in contempt of Congress. They have defied our bipartisan subpoenas for documents around the census, and this is about a pillar of our democracy. Since day one, this administration has worked to add a dangerous discriminatory citizenship question to the census in order to, as they have now described in documents that have come out, to silence immigrants, people of color, and ensure that we suppress the vote. Even after the Supreme Court ruled against this administration, they've refused to provide Congress with the information we need to get to the truth, to get to the facts, and instead have led an unprecedented, unlawful campaign to obstruct the House oversight. We have a message for Mr. Trump. We aren't walking away from our oversight responsibilities. We're not walking away from our responsibilities under Article 1 of the Constitution. We are a co-equal branch of government, and we're not going anywhere. We will hold this administration and this president accountable. And with that, I am very pleased to turn this over to Congresswoman Katie Hill.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so proud to be here with my colleagues. And I am Katie Hill. I'm the co-representative on behalf of the freshman class to leadership. And I'm the Congresswoman for California's 25th Congressional District, where I'm proud to fight on behalf of regular working people like my own family every single day. Before I was in Congress, I spent my career working to address the issue of homelessness. And tonight in Los Angeles County, where I represent, more than 50,000 people are going to be sleeping on the streets. Any single night in Los Angeles County, 50,000 people, hundreds of thousands of people across the country. And those of us who work in homelessness know that this is a compound of a broken system. It's not a single issue, but it's devastating to me to know that so many of those people are not simply addicted to drugs or struggling with mental health. They are working. They are working full-time jobs. They have kids, they have families, they're sleeping in their cars, and they simply can't make ends meet, despite the fact that they are working full-time. So in a country with this much wealth, we can no longer excuse the fact that there are people who are working full-time, working hard, who are unable to live and keep a roof over their head and feed their families. The data is clear. Minimum wage increases are good for workers, they're good for communities, they're good for women, and they're also good for our economy. At 31, I'm one of the youngest members of this historically diverse freshman class, and I've seen the effects of a low minimum wage on young people and on women specifically. I've been a server myself. I was a server at a restaurant for 4 years, living off of tips, and I worked in a minimum wage restaurant. I know that if we ever want to deal with issues like the housing crisis, the student loan debt crisis, and all of the other barriers between my generation and the American dream, then we have to address the critically low minimum wage across this country. I believe that that starts with the Raise the Wage Act, and that's why I'm so proud to be an original co-sponsor of this legislation, which will incrementally get us to a $15 an hour minimum wage across the United States by the year 2024. I'm getting ready to head home for the August district work period, and I'm proud that I'm going to be able to look members of our unions, hardworking single moms, and struggling young people in the eyes and say that we're fighting for them in Washington. I, along with my Democratic colleagues, will continue to work to put the needs of the American people and American workers above all else so that everyone has access to the American dream. And I think that it's so, so important that this stays at the top of our radars. We have so many distractions going on. We have a president who is trying to keep the focus on him instead of the issues that matter to every single person in this country. And that's exactly what we're trying to do the opposite of. So thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. Oh, and I'd like to yield to my wonderful colleague, David Trone.
Good morning, everybody. I'm David Trone from Maryland 6th District. That's Montgomery County in Western Maryland. I'm a proud original co-sponsor of the Raise the Wage Act. It's been over a decade. Our workers haven't got $1. So we need to step forward here, but I've got a unique perspective on this. I'm a business entrepreneur, a business founder. I started a small company almost 30 years ago. Today the company has over 7,000 team members in 25 states across the country. So I understand business extremely well. And the most important value of every business is your team. The folks that work in that business, they're the ones that make the difference. So as you evaluate, what's the right thing to do for your business, your small business, your medium business, it's treat and focus on your team members. That's what's going to take care of the customer. And if we take care of the customer, the business wins, the workers win, everybody wins together. This is a win-win legislation. The Democratic Party sometimes gets lost as far as who we really are, but we are the party of progressive capitalism. We understand that capitalism is what's built America into the best system anywhere in the world. It's a job creation machine, but we've got to be progressive. We've got to realize that great wages, health care for everybody, FMLA, partner benefits, all those things that my company has done, those are the things that really make America who we are and celebrate our diversity and help us move forward together. When a price increase comes up on steel, what do businesses do? They raise the retail. They raise their costs. When a price increase comes up on hamburger or wine, whatever it might be, that cost gets passed on. But the most important cost is the cost of our teams. So with a cost increase in labor costs to $15, that cost needs to be passed on. And we've already done this in Seattle successfully. We've done this in the Bay Area successfully. I operate in both of those markets. There is zero job loss. Workers get a better deal. But the way it works is the prices go up a little bit, a small amount. As prices go up a small amount, those costs are passed on. 330 million of us pay a little bit more for a hamburger, for a chicken, for a restaurant, a small amount more. But you know what? The 1.8 million folks that do not have a living wage, they're lifted up to a living wage, and we owe that back to them. We owe that because that's a society, that's the party that we are, to stand up and work across the board with everybody as Team America. So I strongly support this. It's important we get it done. And as Katie said, our focus should be on what the party's accomplishing, not the distractions, which are totally irrelevant. We can't let him control the agenda. We have to drive the agenda. It's an agenda for the American people. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Trone, Congresswoman Hill, and of course, Catherine Clark.
Congressman Jeffries, you guys are going to vote on this resolution tonight condemning the president. Why not take a stronger stance and censor the president?
Well, the decision has been made by leadership with the full support of the overwhelming majority of the House Democratic Caucus that this is the right approach to take at this moment. There will be accountability measures that we'll have to consider as we move forward. But at the moment that we're in right now, we want the strongest vote possible, and we're hopeful that our colleagues on the other side of the aisle would put country ahead of party, would put decency ahead of Donald Trump. Let's see what happens on the floor later on this evening.
Over the weekend, an armed man was killed while attacking a immigrant detention facility in Washington State, trying to liberate the facility. Do you think that Democrats should tone down rhetoric like saying concentration camps, things like that? Do you think there needs to be a reflection in the caucus about that?
I'm unfamiliar with that particular incident. Obviously, anytime a life is lost in the United States of America, it's cause for concern. The person that needs to tone down the xenophobic and racist rhetoric that is consistently peddled out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is Donald J. Trump.
Congressman Jeffries, did you sanction that tweet on last weekend against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's chief of staff? If not, can you explain it? If you did endorse it, can you talk about what the thinking was about elevating your fight to Twitter?
The tweet speaks for itself.
Would it be responsible for House Democrats to leave town in August, end of this month, without raising the debt ceiling, given the projections that have been made?
We are working through that issue at the highest level, and the Speaker is in discussion with the administration to try to resolve our fiscal situation in the most responsible manner possible. For updates on that matter even further, I would elevate the question to the Speaker's office.
Can you talk a little bit more about the kind of accountability measures you mentioned? What might that look like if it's not going to be a censure? What other measures could you guys take?
Well, I'll let my other colleagues weigh in on this or any other issue. I'll simply say, in terms of what's in front of us, there's a resolution that lifts up American values with respect to America being a nation of immigrants. Some voluntary, others involuntary, but as Dr. King said, we're all in the same boat now. Our diversity is a strength, it is not a weakness. And we should come together, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans to condemn the language that has offended so many that Donald Trump has used. Moving forward, we have Bob Mueller testifying before the Judiciary Committee next week under the leadership of Chairman Jerry Nadler. That will be an important moment as it relates to accountability, and we'll see what happens thereafter.
I think at this moment we want to be clear. It is not about which tactic, which vehicle we choose. Censure, condemnation, contempt, all being considered this week, but they're tactics. Our focus as House Democrats is on the division that this president continues to sow. This is his plan, to take people's fears and anxieties and to divide us as a country. What House Democrats are uniform for is that we are saying, whether you are white, black, brown, Asian, or Native American, we are building a future. We have an agenda that will ensure that you have a place in our economy, that you have a place where you can have a family, live the American dream. This president, with his racist attacks, is showing us that he is not concerned with anything but further enriching those who are already rich and powerful. And his plan is to distract us, to divide us, so they can pickpocket us while we're not looking. That is what we are speaking out against. This attack on American values, this attack on trying to be a country that is the United States of America, not the divided states. That's what we're saying. And the tactics are second to that purpose of holding this administration accountable for their racist comments that are trying to sow those seeds of division.
So I have the honor of serving on the House Armed Services Committee, and I think something that isn't emphasized enough is that our enemies want nothing more than for us to be divided as a country. And every single day that the president has this kind of rhetoric, he is playing directly into the hands of our enemies. So it's important for us to do everything that we can to try and bring us back together. And I think that this resolution, the way that it is being authored, is an attempt to say that as Americans, regardless of your party, we do not believe that people are somehow less than others because of the color of their skin or their country of origin, or because you disagree with the president of the United States. And I think that we have to show the world that this isn't who we are as a country. We have to show ourselves, our neighbors, that this isn't who we are as Americans. And this is such an important message for us to send across the entire globe. We are constantly fighting the rhetoric that this president is putting out there. We cannot have this kind of division moving forward, and I'm hopeful that our colleagues across the aisle will join us in recognizing that.
I think Katie nailed it. It'd be great if this could be bipartisan, because this is what it should be. This is a country that's in the middle, and we're in the middle, and that's about getting things done. But our diversity is what's made everything in America work for centuries, and we've got to celebrate that. And I sit on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and as Katie talked about, I mean, it's allowing our adversaries to show us in complete disarray and discord. And that's the wrong thing. We need to pull together and be united, all support each other, and move the country forward, and focus on the business of America, raising the Wage Act. All those things are about how we can lift Americans up together and let this distraction move on. We've had a good response. Let's do it.
Go here and then, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you believe Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is being well served by her chief of staff following up on that tweet over the weekend?
Well, that's a personnel matter that I'll leave for her to resolve. I have great respect for every single member of the House Democratic Caucus, from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Josh Gottheimer and everyone in between.
Is the House Democrats' Twitter account going to continue to go after this chief of staff or any other member or staffer who makes points that you disagree with?
The House Democratic Caucus account will continue to highlight the efforts by members to work on the kitchen table pocketbook issues that are important to the American people.
Another place where he wants to move the conversation is to immigration, because he also believes that is divisive. How do Democrats, have a message to the people in the middle, the people you spoke to, the majority maker areas of the country? How do you talk to them on these issues?
It is about the For the People agenda, and it is about showing that everybody needs those pathways to success, to get a fair shot. And immigration is used by this president. His words were vile this week, but this is his go-to, because he knows that when we're unified, when we're talking about how to build shared prosperity, how to give every child in this country a shot at success with a good education, how to give families a living wage like we're doing this week, how to create good jobs by investing in infrastructure, reducing the cost of prescription drugs, making sure everyone has health insurance. He knows that he will be revealed as the failed president that he is. His only tactic, and this has been from his first ride down that escalator as a candidate, has been to divide us, to stoke fears of the other, to say that somehow immigrants are the ones who are responsible for the failure to have wages keep pace with our economy. He wants to not look at the fact that he signed a major tax bill that was totally aimed at the top 1%, that he continues to make the winner's circle very small. and that middle Americans, your everyday working families, are on the losing end of these policies of this administration. And the way he does that is by using hate, by using racism, by using bias to deflect and to divide. He will continue to do this. And what we're doing as House Democrats is calling that out and saying what really needs to happen is whoever you are, whatever ethnic, religious background you may have, whatever your immigration status, whether you're fifth-generation American or a newcomer, that there is a place at the table for you, and that our focus is on your needs, the issues you talk about around your kitchen table, not those of division, of sowing these seeds of hatred and racism that this president wants to focus on. That's our For the People agenda. That's where we will remain focused and working for the people who sent us here.
I'd like to respond to that question in particular because I come from one of the districts that flipped. And I think there's a few things in terms of how I talk in my community about this issue of immigration, because it is something that comes up over and over again. But we're split. We have a large number of people who come from immigrant families themselves, and we have people who are from law enforcement backgrounds and who are concerned about border security. So the thing that I try to approach it from, the way that I try to approach it, is from a place of values. What do we care about as Americans? Who are we as Americans? And when you talk about the kinds of situations that people are fleeing, they are not coming here, they are not traveling 1,000 miles to across horrible landscapes, putting their families in danger because they want to. I don't even know what the president thinks they might want to do, but they're doing it out of desperation. And for my constituents, we are best served when we have the resources, when Border Patrol has the resources to truly secure our border, to focus on people who are trafficking drugs or who are, actual dangerous criminals, and not the families and the unaccompanied minors who are currently the ones that are coming here in a huge way. So I think we have to make sure that the resources are there in the appropriate fashion. We have to address the root causes. That's why later this summer I'm planning on visiting the Northern Triangle, and I know a number of my colleagues are as well. But we have to look at this from an entire holistic perspective and not try and just put blame on the people who are coming right now. And it really is important for all of us to continue to reflect on who are we, what is the legacy that we want to leave, and how do we want the world to see us for the foreseeable future. And right now, the images that are coming out of those facilities do not reflect our values.
Sorry. And then I'll go to the back.
So the president has announced a new limiting asylum policy. Are there any concrete plans for a response from House Democrats, or is that still in the planning stages?
Well, we'll take a look at his latest announcement, which I presume is anchored in and dripping with xenophobia. At the end of the day, we believe that America is great because America is good. And the goodness of the American people understand that we are a nation of immigrants. That has made us stronger as a country, not weaker. The American people fundamentally believe that we should focus on felons to the extent there is immigration enforcement. Donald Trump is targeting and focused on breaking up families. And in his failure to undermine existing U.S. law as it relates to the right for people to lawfully seek asylum at our borders and to present credible fears of persecution. That is what is happening down on the U.S.-Mexico border with families and young children, in many instances fleeing persecution and presenting themselves to immigration authorities consistent with U.S. law. Donald Trump is undermining United States law. I think that's something that the American people will reject. We got two questions, and then we'll end the back and then the center.
Hoping you could speak a bit more on the record about this. On July 2nd, the rapper A$AP Rocky was detained on suspicion of assault in Stockholm. I'm curious if this is something that you've been briefed more on, how you think the State Department has been handling it, and what is your message to people who are concerned about the geopolitics of that particular situation plays itself out?
Well, the State Department issued what I thought was a positive-leaning statement of concern as it relates to both the terms of confinement and the conditions that A$AP Rocky finds himself in. Congressman Adriano Espaillat has been leading the charge, and I expect that he will continue to do so. Last question, thanks.
The vast majority of asylum seekers are denied asylum. Should they be allowed to stay or should they be deported?
Well, we have a broken immigration system in the United States of America that needs a complete and total reevaluation. It should be done in a bipartisan fashion. We all believe that we want to move toward comprehensive immigration reform, with perhaps the starting point for some being the 2013 bipartisan legislation that came out of the United States Senate. It's important for us to get out of the cycle of xenophobia and hatred that the president has us in right now, so that we can work on solving the problems of the American people, both as it relates to improving the quality of life of everyday Americans and solving our broken immigration system. Thank you, everyone.